What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero, because World War III is a really bad idea. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
Aloha, America. Welcome to our show today. It is Tuesday, September 15th, 2020, getting into the week here. We have a lot to talk about, and as usual, we're going to do news until I start running out of news, at which point we will open the phone lines for your comments, questions, opinions, and observations here. The Hurricane Sally is expected to make landfall tonight or early tomorrow. It's actually slowed down a little bit, which is not a good thing because it gives it more of an opportunity to build strength over the warm Gulf waters. At the moment, it's a Cat 1, 80-mile-an-hour winds, 115-mile-an-hour gusts, and it looks like the center of the storm is aimed right at Mobile, Alabama. And experts are warning the storm surge will test New Orleans levee system, which, as you know, did not do very well during Hurricane Katrina. And as a matter of fact, a monument to Hurricane Katrina has already been flooded. And they're expecting Sally to hit Cat 2 sometime in the immediate future. All righty. President Trump arrives in an Arizona Grand Resort to cheering supporters chanting 4 more years, lining the street. So they're definitely getting out there to support him. Now, Ivanka Trump says this election is a choice between the most authentic president we've ever had or a vessel for the fringe of the Democratic Party as she visits a bakery in North Carolina. And moving right along here, apparently Biden flees the podium before reporters can ask questions after he accuses Trump of destroying American suburbs with climate change. He called him a climate change arson. Meanwhile, Haim Saban is backing Biden, will host a fundraiser next week. The event will feature Biden along with Representative Adam Schiff and costs $500,000 per person. Now, Saban is an Israeli-American billionaire who has stated, "I'm a one-issue guy and my issue is Israel." Saban is close to Jared Kushner and helped broker the deal between the United Arab Emirates and Israel. Meanwhile, Sheldon Adelson, another pro-Israel billionaire, is funding Donald Trump and Republicans. So it doesn't matter who wins the election, Israel still comes out ahead. That's the strategy there. So Biden accused Donald Trump of being a climate arsonist whose failures on global warming are the real threat to the suburbs. In fact, he went so far as to say that if Donald Trump is elected, the suburbs will be destroyed in superstorms. And he slammed the president on West Coast wildfires and Midwestern floods and coastal hurricanes. I personally think that the gods are very angry with the United States of America, but that's another matter entirely here. And Joe Biden's campaign has set up a legal war room with hundreds of lawyers, including former Attorney General Eric Holder, to guarantee a free and fair election, at least so they say. What they're going to be doing is opposing Donald Trump's legal team, which is going to be questioning the mail-in ballots, especially those counted after Election Day. And apparently we're going to see Florida 2000 all over again, where the election is going to wind up in the court system. Now, Kamala Harris had a little bit of a Freudian slip here and started talking about the economic plan she would implement during a Harris administration. And then she backed off and quickly said, you know, Joe Biden would be in charge. So she's already got the dagger out for Joe's back. Meanwhile, Kamala Harris, who says she supports defunding the police, is seen in Miami being protected by dozens of police officers, as well as a Secret Service agent carrying an assault rifle, a weapon she has vowed to ban. And by the way, Biden is out there talking about banning assault weapons again because of all the violence across the country. Again, the problem isn't the assault rifles. The problem is Black Lives Matter and Antifa. Anyway, Kamala Harris visited Florida Memorial University last Thursday in Miami and was protected by an assault rifle-wielding Secret Service agent. While running for president in 2019, she promised to ban assault weapons within the first 100 days of her team. She said if Congress failed to enact reasonable gun safety laws, she would take, quote, executive action, end quote, to do so. Well, Kamala, vice presidents don't have executive authority. Only presidents do. So this is another tip-off that she sees herself as being eventually the president when Biden is forced to step down because of his deteriorating mental attitude. So it looks like basically the Democrats are stealing the presidency for Kamala rather than for Joe. Secret Service agents are trained and equipped to handle assault rifles. Well, it doesn't take that long to learn. Anyway, there was a heavy police presence guarding the venue where Harris spoke, with some officers coming from as far as Homestead, 30 miles from Miami. This comes after Harris supported defunding the police. All righty, somebody threw a Latinos for Biden parade in Las Vegas this last weekend. Was a total flop. Only a handful of people actually bothered to show up. Democratic fundraising platform Act Blue received nearly half of its 2019 donations from people who claim to be unemployed. A preliminary computer analysis from a conservative political group shows they are now auditing the Democratic fundraising behemoth for suspected, quote, foreign donations. I don't think they necessarily need to be foreign to be dishonest. I think Trump is right when he says it looks like a money laundering operation. Judicial Watch announced today it received 87 pages of records from the U.S. Department of Justice that show senior members of Robert Mueller's special counsel's office repeatedly and, quote, accidentally, end quote, wiped phones assigned to them. Got something to hide? The records were produced in response to Judicial Watch's September 2019 Freedom of Information Act lawsuit filed against the Justice Department and FBI over December 17, 2018 Freedom of Information Act requests. All righty. Story coming out of Blabber. Democratic coup d'etat. Big shoe about to drop on DNC. Mueller's team cover-up organized. The Mueller investigation has recently gone through some legal issues. When asked to present all the phones of attorneys who were involved in the investigation, miraculously, the phones were wiped with no intention. Really, it was just an incredible mistake. And if you believe that, I have some of Saddam Hussein's nuclear weapons to sell you. President Trump declared that action must be taken against former special counsel Robert Mueller's prosecutors after the recent developments. Now, if those are government-issued phones, then the records on those phones are public records, and there are laws saying they must be preserved. So they broke the law by wiping those phones. Now, a lawyer who was in private practice who did this would go to a court hearing, and the judge could call him on 4 hours' notice, knowing that sanctions and a bar referral and criminal investigation would follow. But supposedly these highly placed prosecutors are above the law. And speaking of crooked elections here, more than 1,600 New Jersey primary ballots were found in a misplaced bin 2 months after the election. They found them in a bin last Thursday from the July primary. So once again, skullduggery out there. I'm wondering who those votes were for. Meanwhile, out on the West Coast, devastating wildfires continue to blaze across California, Oregon, and Washington. I was just looking at an article from Baltimore saying that they can see the smoke in the sky there. We could see a little tint of orange this morning when the sun was coming up, more than normal sunrise colors. And a friend of mine over in Arkansas says he could actually just faintly smell the smoke here. But the fires are continuing. And according to this article that came out of Investment Watch blog, it is now abundantly clear that arsonists are setting many of the wildfires that are exploding across western states. Remember what I said yesterday. We're not seeing these fires north of the Canadian border. We're not seeing them south of the Mexico border. It's just all confined to that West Coast strip here. Naturally, Oregon fire officials have now officially denied the fires are being set by human beings. Instead, they've hopped on board. It's all Trump's fault because of climate change. Now, in case you're trying to keep track of this, when terrorists set fire to buildings and cities, that's known as peaceful protesting. But when terrorists set fire to forests and nature, that's called climate change. Now, an Oregon sheriff was on video admitting the fires are being ignited deliberately. And he's seen lots of pictures and reports, some of them likely fake, about how Antifa is setting these fires, which makes perfect sense. This video shows clear evidence that sheriffs are aware of the threat. And this officer, after making this tape, in which he calls for people to be vigilant, keep an eye out, take down license plate numbers, he was put on paid administrative leave for his remarks. 4 people have already been arrested for arson. I had heard 8. But in this article, it says 4. Now, we talked about this before, but I'm going to mention it again. This man was arrested for starting a fire in Oregon. He was released with no bail and immediately starts setting fires again. Now, despite tweets from the FBI's Portland branch claiming that arsonists aren't causing the wildfires, and again, how could they know one way or the other? The Portland police arrested a suspect last evening for starting a brush fire, and they arrested him the next day after letting him out with no bail. On Sunday afternoon, PPD East Precinct officers were dispatched to assist Portland Fire and Rescue with a brush fire in the 9600 block of East Burnside Street. Officers saw that a section of grass along the I-205 freeway was burning. Firefighters extinguished the fire. No one was injured. No structures were damaged. According to a report, East officers later flagged down by a witness who pointed out the suspect in a nearby tent, who then confirmed he had lit the fire with a device. Now, I posted a video to the front of whatreallyhappened.com, and it's a Zoom meeting of the Board of County Commissioners of Klamath County. And in it, at the 11-minute and 30-second mark, they report extremists are staging gas cans across the county for, quote, further destruction, end quote. Meanwhile, over in Kelso, Washington, a man starting a fire in shrubs in a residential area was caught on a security camera. So gosh darn that human-caused global warming. It's just out of control. Now, there's been a huge amount of looting going on, coincident with these fires, and it's reached the point where some residents of an Oregon county are illegally stopping unfamiliar drivers at gunpoint and saying, get out of our neighborhood. All while much of the county is under an evacuation order as wildfires rage. Oregon homeowners warn looters amid the wildfire, you loot, we shoot. Homeowners have issued warnings for those who seek to loot and damage property amid the wildfire evacuations, posting signs that state they will shoot and kill those who do. You loot, we shoot, read one hand-painted sign outside of a home, which was captured by KPTV journalist Devin Eskew as he covered the destruction. We won't call your family. Your body will never be found. Bang, bang, another sign stated. All righty, Governor Kate Brown to veto 34 sections of the budget bills to preserve wildlife response funds. Oregon's governor announced Monday she plans to veto 34 sections of the rebalanced budget bills the Oregon legislature passed during a one-day special session in August. Brown will veto cuts to the Oregon Department of Forestry to preserve $65 million that can be used to help with the historic wildfires that have ravaged the state. Other vetoes will maintain a balanced budget, which is required by the Oregon Constitution. Brown said the state's ending fund balance will grow to $164 million in general funds and $16.7 million in lottery funds. So it's a huge, huge cost to everybody for all these fires. And if indeed they're being deliberately set, I think the people setting those fires ought to be held personally financially liable for all the losses. And I know they don't have that kind of money, but still, it would be symbolic here. California wildfire smoke blanketing southern Ontario skies this week. And smoke from the fires, which have consumed more than 1 million acres, 2 of which are among the state's largest in recorded history, is blowing into southern Ontario this week. And I got an email saying amateur astronomers up there are very frustrated because the skies are so hazy, they can hardly see anything, even without any clouds. All righty, getting on to the protests in the streets here. And by the way, a story that was breaking just before we went to the air. Over in Phoenix, an officer at the federal courthouse was shot in a drive-by shooting. The wounds are non-life-threatening, and they're currently trying to find the perpetrator there. Meanwhile, polls are showing more voters classify the Black Lives Matter unrest as riots rather than protests. Black Lives Matter has got a huge public relations problem of their own making, let's be honest here. But more voters consider the unrest in 3 U.S. cities stemming from Black Lives Matter demonstrations to be riots rather than protests, a new Fox News poll shows. The poll, published Sunday, found that 48% of likely voters surveyed described violence in New York, Portland, and Kenosha, Wisconsin to be riots, compared to 40% who saw them as protests. The results break down along party lines, with 68% of Republicans calling the unrest riots compared to 30% of Democrats. Along racial lines, more than half the white voters, 52%, saw the protests as riots. Meanwhile, 62% of black respondents and 48% of Hispanics describes them as protests. Okay, there was this black street preacher in Charlotte, North Carolina declaring Jesus saves, and he was attacked by a mob shouting, blank you Jesus, or blank Jesus, rhymes with luck. The confrontation took place during the Republican National Convention in the city in August, but was ignored by the media and spotlighted Monday by the Gateway Pundit. Now, the video footage from this would make the ultimate Trump ad. So will the Trump campaign dare put this truth linking Black Lives Matter and their Democratic supporters before the American people? They really ought to. They really, really ought to. I've noticed that Joe Biden is out there trying to quote the Pope to try and get the religious vote as well. An internal email from the Department of Homeland Security leaked to CBS Catherine Herridge late Monday, detailing the violence in Portland was not opportunistic, but rather organized, confirming long-suspected details about the Antifa movement. The email explains that Antifa is organized and runs contrary to reports in the corporate media that Antifa was not responsible for anti-police violence, but an impromptu movement spurred on by anti-fascist sentiments held by most of the American public. A recent article in the Washington Post by Mark Bray, author of Antifa, Anti-Fascist Handbook, attempted to dispel myths about Antifa, claiming that the group is not an organization, but rather a tradition of militant anti-fascism. The article disputes claims that Antifa masterminds violence at Black Lives Matter protests. Now, Douglas Murray is out there saying that all the bases are set for a civil war in America. Those radicals seeking to destroy the U.S. from within should be careful what they wish for. If they think the Anglo-American hegemony was bad, they're going to have a heck of a time when they discover what the Chinese hegemony looks like. I can tell you that the Chinese hegemony is going to look like based on the treatment of the Uyghur Muslims. China is not going to be great for Black Lives Matter. Chinese isn't going to be great for trans. China isn't going to be great for microaggression people. All righty. Over in Seattle, Black Lives Matter took over a grocery store to protest a lack of access to grocery stores. Now, that makes a lot of sense. So leftists were blocking Trader Joe's from building stores, and then they protest the lack of access to those stores. Why doesn't this compute? Were there guards blocking these protesters from entering the store? They protested over lack of access. Were there any actual impediments to them entering? No, they weren't. What they're protesting is that Trader Joe appeals to a slightly upscale clientele. And in their Marxist little dream, they want all supermarkets to be exactly equal. Okay, over in Virginia, a Black Panther group was filmed terrorizing small businesses, demanding they apologize to the Black Queen, whoever that was. So anyway, the group calls themselves the Original Black Panthers of Virginia, and they filmed themselves terrorizing the Church Food Mart in Portsmouth and demanded an immigrant employee apologize to a Black queen for allegedly pulling a gun on her. Video of the incident was proudly shared on September 5th by Black Panthers leader Mike Payne on Facebook and racked up nearly 300,000 views. I noticed that Facebook isn't pulling that one down. Over in Los Angeles County Sheriff Alex Villanueva challenged NBA player LeBron James to double the reward to find the man who shot those two deputies. And the reward is now up to $125,000. More people are bailing on in, and the LA County Sheriff is saying LeBron should match that. Scott Walker has a message for Kamala Harris. You visited Jacob Blake. How about visiting the ambushed LA deputies in your own state? On Sunday morning, former GOP Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker, taking note of the two Los Angeles County deputies who were shot in the head in an ambush Saturday night, threw down the gauntlet to Democratic vice presidential candidate Kamala Harris, who is a senator from California. Rioters throw bricks at police in Pennsylvania after a minority man was shot for charging the police with a knife. And they just started rioting, and the body camera footage shows this guy, attacking the police with a knife. And of course, if you do that, expect to get shot. All right, let's talk about the coronavirus. It's still out there. U.S. coronavirus deaths are nearing 200,000, but fatality rate is slowing down. Okay? The U.S. will record its 200,000 fatality within the week, a horrific number, mitigated by the knowledge the death toll is apparently leveling off or possibly in decline. President Trump has retweeted this information that COVID-19 is fizzling out in the U.S. if it's not actually over. The U.S. records the second lowest number of new COVID-19 deaths since July, but Dr. Fauci says there's a disturbing rise in daily cases in 11 states as outbreak monitors predict a deadly December. I think this is all going to go away as soon as the election is over. Okay, we got to take a break for commercials, and we'll be back after these few words. Welcome back to our show here. And again, a reminder that Republic Broadcasting Network is in the middle of a perpetual fundraiser. And folks, the situation is dire. The cupboard is bare. The piggy bank is empty. No more quarters left in the bottom of our sock. And we're at the point right now where we're going to have to start selling our control room technicians for medical experiments unless you're willing to step up to the plate and help us keep doing what it is that we're doing. And I'm not kidding. The situation is very, very serious right now. And a big thank you to those of you who have donated to Republic Broadcasting, and a big thank you to those of you who are about to donate to Republic Broadcasting, because if you don't, we might not be here in the very near future. So, folks, we need you to dig deep here and maybe, forego that pizza on Friday and instead make a donation to Republic Broadcasting. The postal address where you can send a check, money order, or if you prefer anonymity, cash, is Republic Broadcasting Network, 2251 Double Creek Drive, number 302, Round Rock, Texas, 78664. The phone number where you can make a credit or debit card donation is 800-724-2719, extension 3. The network thanks you. I thank you. All right, getting on back to the news here. Donald Trump tries hyping a coronavirus vaccine within weeks, despite Dr. Fauci saying the country has to hunker down and get through this fall and winter. Trump was out there saying on Fox and Friends, we'll have a vaccine in a matter of weeks. It could be 4 weeks, it could be 8 weeks, but we're going to have it. Experts have said a vaccine could be ready by the end of this year, the start of 2021. Meanwhile, Dr. Anthony Fauci warned Americans to hunker down to prepare to get through the winter, because it's not going to be easy. This was during a panel discussion with the Harvard Medical School. Fauci said vaccine trials were going well, but cautioned a cure would not be ready until the end of 2020 or beginning of next year. Well, a vaccine is not a cure. It's supposedly a preventative. And here's a rather interesting article out of Investment Watchdog. Was the goalpost set all along? LA County schools won't reopen until after the election. And we're seeing more and more of these stories about how, the mask mandates are going to go away after the election and things are going to reopen after the election. And it sort of underscores the fact that the whole COVID-19 was being politicized all along, mostly by the Democrats, trying to say, this is Trump's fault, this is going on this long. Now, scientists at the University of Pittsburgh School of Medicine say they appear to have made a breakthrough when it comes to the treatment and possible prevention of coronavirus. They've discovered an antibody that neutralizes the virus that causes COVID-19 by blocking it from entering cells. So that would be good news if that works out. Over in the Philippines, President Duterte is vowing to procure coronavirus vaccines from Russia and China only, saying that Western pharmaceuticals are all about the profit. And the Philippine president has promised to kick the butt of Western pharma giants if they try to negotiate supplying COVID-19 vaccines to Manila, adding the country will procure their medications only from Russia and China. Manila will prioritize purchasing coronavirus vaccines from Moscow and Beijing, should they be as good as any other on the market. Alrighty, a federal judge has struck down Pennsylvania's COVID mandates as unconstitutional. This happened yesterday. A federal judge ruled that Pennsylvania Governor Tom Wolf's and Secretary of Health Rachel Levine's coronavirus orders, which shut down the state, closed businesses, and limited gatherings, were unconstitutional. U.S. District Judge William Stickman IV agreed with the plaintiff's claim that Wolf's business shutdown stay-at-home orders violated certain constitutional rights. The plaintiffs include Butler, Fayette, Greene, and Washington counties, 4 Republican lawmakers, and several small businesses in those counties. Stickman said in his opinion that COVID-19 orders from Wolf and Pennsylvania Secretary of Health Rachel Levine violated and continue to violate the First Amendment right to freedom of assembly and the due process and equal protection clauses of the 14th Amendment. Over in Ohio, a major case has been filed against their governor and the state of Ohio for restricting freedom without legitimate justification. Ohio Attorney Thomas Renz, on behalf of plaintiffs, has filed a case against the state of Ohio and Governor Mike DeWine. Renz is asking for a jury trial. This case in the current climate should provoke intense interest in the public and from every lawyer within hailing distance. Over in Pennsylvania, their lawmakers are considering a bill that would make not wearing a mask a misdemeanor. Supporters of Senate Bill 1287 say Pennsylvanians who don't wear masks are recklessly endangering other people and not following the rules set forth in the state's emergency order. So how effective are the masks? Well, the CDC, after much hemming and hawing, is sort of admitting that the masks really aren't that effective. In electron micrographs, the size of the COVID-19 virus varies from 60 to 140 nanometers in diameter. Now, the N95 filters, which are supposed to be the very best for this, provide filtration down to 0.3 microns. That's more than twice the size of the virus particle. On this basis alone, they should not be relied on for protection from particles such as those of SARS-CoV-2. Still, the corporate media and the organs of the state insist that even more cloth masks work for protection from the COVID virus, suggesting that the much better N95 must be nearly foolproof. USA Today published a fact check that insists the N95 filters work effectively for COVID-19, regardless of the fact that virus particles are small enough to pass through. Kind of like stopping mosquitoes with a chain link fence. Okay, we got to take another break for commercials. We'll be right back. Welcome back to our show here. We're going to go ahead and open up the phone lines, 800-313-9443. Down in Australia, the state has now issued the first ankle tracker for quarantine violator. And they're taking their burgeoning fascist police state to a new level, with officials in Western Australia now issuing electronic ankle bracelets and forced isolation in specially designated hotels to anyone it believes has violated the new raft of controversial COVID laws. Okay, as we reported yesterday, de Blasio has canceled Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade, which is going to kill the New York City economy even further. And I noticed he didn't have a problem with protest marches. A little kind of a double standard there. And they say they're going to have a televised parade, which I'm not, I mean, they have to have it someplace to televise it, but apparently they don't want the crowd showing up. And a lot of people are very unhappy with de Blasio right now. In fact, article coming out of Blabber, after Mayor Bill de Blasio and Governor Cuomo did not respond to deliver results, New York City business leaders are asking President Trump to intervene and help them avoid bankruptcy. Desperation prompted some restaurant, bar, and business owners in general to gather outside City Hall on the morning of September 14th with an urgent message for city officials and President Trump. Now, New York's major business groups are calling on President Trump to back funding for transit agencies and city and state budgets as part of stall talks about the next coronavirus aid package, which Pelosi seems to be holding up until she gets what she wants. Okay, toilet paper is back on the store shelves, but you may not recognize some of the brands. Demand for toilet paper has been so high during the pandemic that in order to keep their shelves stocked, retailers are buying up foreign toilet paper brands, mostly from Mexico. All righty, getting on to the protests and the politicalization of sports. Sunday Night Football ratings post a steep decline compared to last year. In an NFL season that seems to be more about social justice and COVID precautions instead of, well, football, perhaps it should come as no surprise that ratings for Sunday Night Football tanked on NFL's Week 1. Initial ratings from Sunday night's game featuring America's team, the Dallas Cowboys, and the newly moved Los Angeles Rams plunged from last year. Sunday Night Football ratings plunged according to Yahoo Finance. The game posted a 4.7 among the key adult 18 through 49 demographic with 14.81 million viewers. Although the numbers may still rise after the West Coast numbers are factored in, the article notes it's still a steep drop. NFL season begins with player protests as the opening sees low ratings and fan backlash. The National Football League season got underway on Sunday with some players kneeling and raising fists in protest over racial injustice, while others stayed off the field for the Star-Spangled Banner, America's national anthem. Some of the games had the so-called Black national anthem, for which the football players stood. Not that I'm a football fan, but I'd be tuning out the games at this particular point myself here. NFL players say they are frazzled by the lack of fans in the first game. This felt more like a high school scrimmage. And the 2020 NFL season is off and running, although this year looks very different. So far, only 2 teams have allowed fans at their stadiums, the Kansas City Chiefs and Jacksonville Jaguars, both at limited capacity. In total, 7 teams currently plan to have fans in their stadium. The other 12 games, plus 2 more on Monday, were played in empty stadiums, which players said threw them off. Okay. Millions of moral, patriotic Americans are turning off the NFL, NBA, Netflix, and Hollywood, according to an article in Your Destination Now. Okay, we're going to go ahead and take a phone call from Andy in Texas. Hello, Andy. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind today?
Hey, Mike. Nice to talk to you again. Hey, I just want to let people know that, you know what, if you're going to wear this mask and stuff, when it gets to the point where there's an armed officer making you put that thing on, I think this is where we have to go ballistic. I mean, I'm going to set an example when that happens. No matter the consequences. I mean, who wants to live in a world that we're living in right now? People think they own us, and they're running around doing whatever they want to us. A lot of these fires are being set. I'm sure George Soros money's behind all that. I mean, all this stuff is going on. These people are really trying to take this place over, and we're just sitting here, you know, relatively waiting until it's our turn to defend ourselves. It's sad. I think we should be getting together in coalitions and whatnot, and putting an end to this. And it's just really sad that America hasn't come together. I mean, they haven't realized. I think most people haven't realized what exactly is going on right now. This is a takeover. This is the end of what you thought you knew. I mean, look at how many people have lost their jobs. People have lost their businesses and stuff. And this is a Bilderberg thing. This is exactly what they were talking about every year that we protested them and stuff and went and whatnot. These guys were setting this up from the get-go. Notice that only the big box stores are the only thing open. That's the only thing that really can, you know, continue through this. And they're the only ones who have the cash flow that can make it through it. Plus, we don't even know if, are you still there, Mike?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Oh, I'm sorry. I heard a beep.
I have no idea where that was from. We've got gremlins again today.
Got to be on my side. Yeah, there you go. But hey, you know what? We've got some serious issues here that America has to come together with, and we've got too many of these different people. Everybody's living their life for some superhero, some LeBron James, some Scottie Pippen, some Kobe Bryant, some Tom Brady, whatever. Everybody's got their little life, and that's how they've programmed us to live, is to live somebody else's life. And so people got to come together right now. We have to pull our heads out of our behinds and do what the heck we're supposed to do. But hey, on another note, and I'll let you go after this, I want everybody who's listening to at least go over to republicbroadcasting.org and take a look at that store in there. He's got some good storable food, and he's got some survival stuff. And by the way, if in fact you can't find something that you need, there's that donate button at the bottom down there, so y'all can do that too. Anyway, thanks, Mike. You have a great day.
All right. Well, thank you very much, and thank you for the plug there, because we are in dire straits right now financially, and we need all the help that we can get. And remember, there's no such thing as too small of a donation. We'll take $1 from everybody listening to this show right now, and that would be a big, big help. All righty. So we're going to get on back here to the news here. International news here. Over in Afghanistan, they have peace talks taking place between the Afghan government and the Taliban. And people are asking, why bother? Just leave. We've been there for 19 years. Nobody's going to honor any kind of a deal that's made. Let's just get on out before we waste another 20 years and another $3 trillion. Now, Trump has now responded to a report that Iran is plotting to assassinate the U.S. ambassador, and I'm not sure that report is accurate. I think it's just more Iran bashing and trying to ramp up tensions there. But Donald Trump responded to the report indicating that the Islamic Republic of Iran was weighing plans to assassinate a U.S. ambassador by stating that any attack by Iran would be met with a response 1,000 times greater in magnitude. So I think we're being set up. I think they're going to whack an ambassador, probably that one to South Africa, because she'd make a great martyr. And then the war will be on that everybody's been wanting for all these years here. Among the most interesting and bellicose comments to come out of Putin's meeting with embattled Belarusian President Lukashenko related to future cooperation between the country's army. Lukashenko urged that both countries prepare to resist possible external aggression during his meeting based on regional media reports of his statements. In statements sure to further outrage the opposition gathered in the streets of Minsk, he said of NATO forces, "I believe that in no case should we look back at what they will tell us. They disregard us. They do not look at our wariness. They conduct exercises where they want. Therefore, we also, if you support this thesis without straining the overall situation, we will prepare our armies so that, God forbid, we could resist it." Everybody's getting ready for war here. State Department has come under fire for facilitating arms sales to Saudis and suppressing evidence of legal issues raised by the Yemen war. U.S. officials are afraid of being arrested over Saudi war crimes in Yemen. A report from the New York Times revealed that some U.S. officials are concerned that their role in facilitating arms sales to Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates, while ignoring the harm to civilians each country has caused in Yemen, could lead to their arrest overseas for war crimes. Now, they're safe inside the United States of America, but as you know, the International Criminal Court is investigating right now, and they could issue international warrants, which would be enforced in a great many foreign countries. The report said that officials from both the Obama administration and the Trump administration have considered hiring lawyers to discuss the possibility of being arrested while vacationing overseas. The Times report reads, "No episode in recent American history compares to Yemen, legal scholars say, where the United States has provided material support over 5 years for actions that have caused the continuous killing of civilians." And that is a war crime here. Meanwhile, the Saudi Air Force is leveling the Yemeni capital to ground in response to the Houthi strikes on Riyadh. And they're bombing Yemen with a renewed energy following the recent missile and drone strikes on the kingdom's capital by the Ansar Allah movement, also known as the Houthis. According to pro-Houthi sources, Saudi warplanes conducted over 60 airstrikes on different targets across the country during the past few days. They insist that most of the targets that were hit were objects of civilian infrastructure. At the same time, Riyadh claims that it's been precisely bombing Houthi military positions. And that's what they're always going to say. All right, we're going to take another phone call. Daniel in British Columbia. Hello, Daniel. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Oh, hi, Michael. Yeah, just to update on the fires and the arsonists. I've got a list of about 7 that were arrested, and 1 was witnessed. So when you said earlier it was 4, I think that's wrong. I could list off the different ones. Yeah, so it's at least 8, and then plus the one that was caught and re-released. So these are the ones that were caught. So you think of the ones that weren't caught,
yes,
that got away, it must be much, much higher. And the fact that the FBI isn't looking into this, that what Christopher Wray needs to be replaced by Trump.
Yep.
It's out of control. I'm here in southern Canada and southern British Columbia, and I can't see across the street. There's no fires in our province.
Yes.
And there's no lightning storms. So it's just right, it stops right at the Washington state border with British Columbia. And James Woods had a good tweet. He's got a good picture, and he's poking fun at Gavin Newsom, saying, "So how come this climate change of yours stops at the Canadian border?" It doesn't make sense. Yeah. So,
of course it does.
This narrative is out of control. There's so many people that are losing their lives and livelihoods. I don't know why this arson thing isn't front page news. I mean, I know why, and you know why, but it just goes to show this media is complicit.
Yes.
It's all about, Joe Biden, and they can't get rid of this narrative that Antifa is bad because it'll make Kamala Harris look bad, a BLM. So.
Well, BLM does have a PR problem, and they made it themselves. And, of course, the corporate media and the Democrats are trying to cover for them and, do some spin doctoring for their behalf. But, I take issue with the FBI coming on out and saying that it's all conspiracy theory, that there's arson going on, when you have the sheriffs who are actually on the ground out there saying, yes, we're catching arsonists. You have that county commissioner meeting in Klamath saying that, yeah, they're stockpiling gas cans for more destruction. The FBI really can't know one way or the other. They certainly haven't investigated. And for them to come out and just say that, no, there's no arson out there, that's probably the biggest whopper they've told since they claimed that Vincent Foster committed suicide.
Exactly. Yeah, there's also a picture on Jeff Rentz's website, and it's sort of going around Facebook here and there. It's a picture of some firefighters holding up an Antifa flag, and their faces are blacked out, and they're holding a gas can. They've also got a chainsaw. And I'm thinking this is a bit of disinfo, because a lot of these firefighters actually do controlled burns, and they use gasoline or fuel to start a controlled burn, and to get these fires that can control. So it's easy enough to put an Antifa flag with Photoshop and black out someone's face, and it might just put egg on everyone's face, because they're going to say, oh, look, there's proof that Antifa is hiding out and pretending to be firefighters. So I kind of look at that one with a bit of suspicion.
Yeah.
So, because it seems like a trap that we'd be falling into, saying, like, look here, it's even on Jeff Rentz's. So just a heads up about that one. I don't know if you've seen it or not, but it's pretty damning.
I haven't.
If it
I'm going
was
to go
true.
take a look next commercial break.
Yeah, he's got a bunch of pictures in a montage that sort of changes if you just watch it for a couple of seconds, and then that one pops up. And another quick note before I let you go. I walked into Walmart the other day, and they said, oh, you need to wear a mask, sir. And I said, oh, no, I've only got one lung. And I started to lift up my shirt and said, you want to see the scar? And they're like, no, it's okay. Just stay 6 feet away from everybody. And so that's one way to get out of wearing a mask. And I'll leave you with that.
All right. Well, thank you very much there. And thank you very much for the phone call. The phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. Now, down in Louisiana, the 2nd Bomb Wing hosted an aircraft monitor and control test for the B-52H Stratoforce. The test is performed every 5 to 10 years to demonstrate the capability of the B-52 to provide the required voltage levels for the mission configuration in the AGM-86 Air-Launched Cruise Missile Interface. Now, the AGM-86 Air-Launched Cruise Missile carries a nuclear warhead. So Barksdale's preparation started a month prior to the test date with the selection of the aircraft and a complete missile operational check. So they're making sure the nukes are definitely going to work. We're going to take another phone call from Joe in Tennessee. Hello, Joe. I'm probably going to have to take you through the commercial break. What's on your mind?
Yeah, I was, it's just this whole thing with the vaccine they're coming up with. I think about 7 or 8 months ago, I remember my mom worrying about Orthodox Jews getting their vaccines up in New York. And I remember it was like a big stirred up thing. And I remember thinking, boy, this seems like some pre-programming, When you want to see like propaganda pre-programming, you always look for people that are programmable, So you want to, when you hear people that are programmable talking these things and you're wondering like, boy, why is my mom talking about vaccines all of a sudden, And it's kind of like 9/11, before 9/11, all of a sudden they started hearing about, bin Laden and things. And, this whole COVID thing is really starting to stink. And I think it's a very diabolical end with these vaccines. And I'm coming to the conclusion that I'm not going to take them. I'm not going to take a vaccine, but I can almost see the pieces being put in place for forcing these vaccines, and also for demonizing people that don't get the vaccines and criminalizing the people that don't get vaccines. They called me for a job, be a fight. That's a line in the sand, and I'm not sure how other people. I'm curious if Dustin's listening. I'm curious what he will do. Will he take the vaccine? Because I know he's like big on masks and all that, but some people, even though they're going with the safety first issues, where you draw the line, and they've done a real good job of demonizing anti-vaxxers and calling you conspiracy theorists and this and that. But I'll tell you flat out, I have reactions from my vaccines, and back then when we were getting our anthrax vaccinations, there really wasn't much of a information out there about vaccinations. I wish I knew now what I know. I mean, I wish I knew then what I know now. I'll tell you that. I never would have taken them.
Well, I was talking with an old friend of mine, Dr. Ronald Klatz, and I've known him for quite a few years, and he was saying that some of what I'm dealing with right now could be an adverse vaccine reaction. Because when I was in the hospital with pneumonia some years back, they shot me full of all kinds of stuff, and I still have no idea what it was.
Yeah, and the people behind vaccinations are like the Bill Gates Club and all these eugenicists and population control people, climate change hysterics, and they really have a diabolical look towards humanity, you know?
Mhm.
Personally, at the time when I got my anthrax shots, I was thinking, oh, well, this is the military's getting it. They would never, like, hurt their own military, you know? And now that I know what I know now, I realize that that was very naive of me.
Oh, remember
One
when you
other,
were trying to say that Gulf War syndrome was all in the soldiers' heads?
yeah, no, I know. I mean, when you look back on, like I said, hindsight, you know, you can look back and see, oh my gosh, you know, what diabolical bastards. So that's part of the reason why I want to be ahead of this one and alert others. I mean, there's some good stuff there. I read, there was an article or a video I watched this morning on Truth Seekers from that guy Richie in Boston. He interviewed a lady named Madej about this whole thing, and it's quite interesting what they can do with nanoparticles. They can change your DNA, and it's very interesting stuff. But and one other quick comment I just wanted to say is I heard on the news last night that the FBI was sending assistance to Los Angeles about the 2 deputies that were shot. And I'm thinking, why is the FBI even getting involved in this? You know, because it's not their jurisdiction. You know,
No, it isn't.
And anytime they're getting involved, they're probably trying to cover something up. You know,
I would agree.
You know, it's kind of like the Kennedy assassination. They would have let the Texas Rangers and the Dallas Police Department investigate that. I'm sure we would have had a lot more information about that. Same way with Waco, and the FBI shows up, and what do they do? They're there to destroy information and evidence and protect their assets. So I'm still very curious what's going to happen. You can't tell me that a little dwarf, that they don't know who that guy is right now. There's no way in hell that I'm going to believe that they don't know exactly who that was right now. And he'll probably turn up dead very shortly.
I would agree on that one as well. All right, thanks an awful lot here. And we're going to switch to Mike in Kentucky. And Mike, I'm probably going to have to take you through the station break. What's on your mind?
Okay.
Mike,
now you can hear me.
There you are. Now I can hear you.
Yeah, there's a little delay. I don't know. I grew up in and around national forests, Boy Scout activities and stuff, and throughout eastern Kentucky, they changed the policy for fires. I mean, at probably sometime in the late 80s to mid 90s, they used to let fires burn. They would mitigate. They would cut fire trails and you know, protect structures and things like that. And environmentalists have just shut that down.
Okay, Mike, just stay on hold. We're going to take a break for station identification, and we'll be right back with you after these few words. Welcome back to our show, hour number 2. The phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. We're going to go back to Mike in Kentucky. And Mike, if you could pick up where you left off.
Yeah, I was just going to say, being out in the woods a lot, both, you know, cutting firewood and hiking with the Boy Scouts and everything, we never had the problems like we have today with ticks and red bugs, or what we call here in eastern Kentucky, chiggers. I don't know if you've heard chiggers, but
yes, I've heard that.
Bugs, I think. Yeah. Well, anyway, the fire, and the Native Americans knew this long before people came over here. The entire bluegrass state is probably named the Bluegrass State because Native Americans burned out the forests and the meadows and the pastures in central Kentucky to encourage the buffalo to come down from Ohio. And they'd run them off the Palisades of the Kentucky River and have a big old, you know, they'd make all the TP leather and stuff they needed from that. And so they, you know, now in California, it's a direct result of the wrong-headed thinking of non-interventionism when it comes to the forestry management. And I'm sure that 2,000-3,000 years ago, probably, the Native Americans noticed, wow, the deer's ears aren't full of ticks. We don't have all these chiggers and problems like that. And now we've got this Asian tick that's invasive, that's very sinister. And so we're headed for a perfect storm of mismanaged forests. And the only thing that might save us is more cosmic rays causing more lightning strikes. I mean, that's where we're headed with this solar minimum. But I mean, that you know, more fires caused by that might be, yeah, they reported the arsons down in Australia last year. I don't understand why they won't report arson in California. Like it's
Oh,
just
because it's bad for the
obviously.
image of Black Lives Matter and Antifa. I mean, it's very obvious they're trying to spin doctor this PR nightmare. When you've got the FBI coming on out and saying there's no arson out there, like I said, how could they possibly know? Even the firefighters don't know which fires are natural and which fires are being set.
They can't know that, so they're lying. I mean, it's obvious
Right.
that they're lying. It's just like I cannot say that there are no space aliens out there in the galaxy. I can't say that logically, because I can't prove it. So the studies now that are out on hydroxychloroquine, it's painfully obvious now that something north of 30 to maybe even as high as 50% of the known deaths, mainly in the elderly with complications and comorbidities, I know, but maybe half the people could have been saved by a combination of hydroxychloroquine and zinc especially, but 450,000 people might be alive if they hadn't politicized hydroxychloroquine. That's what I'm seeing there's a web page that I'm not going to promote it. I don't know who's running it, but they've collected all these studies, about 60 some now are peer reviewed, and some of them definitely are showing that it has no effect, but there's some that show a huge effect, and it's mainly the low early dose. So people need to look at that and start really pressuring the health people to stop withholding hydroxychloroquine and zinc, and maybe even things like quercetin. But they shut down Dr. Ng and Dr. Brownstein after Del Bigtree interviewed them. The Federal Trade Commission of all agencies came in and shut them down, made them take down all their blogs, and their YouTube channels went private and stuff like that. The censorship is just rampant on this now.
Yes.
They were mainly using injectable vitamin C, IV vitamin C, and nebulized hydrogen peroxide, but they were claiming 100% success rate with that. So the censorship is just crazy, rampant, control of the media. I think if enough people found out about that, that would probably by itself destroy the Democratic Party, because they've literally killed, in America alone, probably 60,000 people are dead because of minimum. Maybe more than that, maybe closer to 100,000.
Well, I don't think it was the Democratic Party. The war against hydroxychloroquine is coming from the pharmaceutical industries that want to come out with their latest and greatest new patentable market exclusivity product.
Well, because Trump endorsed it, the Democrats jumped on that bandwagon big time. I mean, this one congressman was on The View a couple of months ago, and Joey Bier just trashed him like, "Oh, I can't believe anybody with half a brain would take that drug." And they rigged studies to kill people is what it looks like. I mean, some of the health people like that Dr. John Campbell out of National Health Service in England, he won't come out and say it, but he says, why did they get it so wrong? How did Oxford and the World Health Organization, how did they get it so wrong? And I genuinely think he probably is trying to softball it, because he says that he shied away from it because it was so controversial, more than he should have. But he's got a video in the last couple of weeks up about it, and the Belgian study that shows a solid 30% reduction in death rate. And that particular study doesn't even look at zinc as a cofactor. But anyway, that's the main topics I wanted to touch on there. So I'll let you get back to your train of thought.
Okay, well, thank you very much for the phone call, and we're going to switch over to Glenn in Philadelphia. Hello, Glenn. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi, Mike. I was listening to what you said about the test they were doing on the B-52s. Power it really isn't an issue. It's been in service for 65 years now, and it's been retrofitted all sorts of ways and everything. It's got to be the oldest airframe that's designed that's anywhere in the world at this point, I would think. But no, the issue isn't power supply for those things. But the one problem is that in order for the bombs to deploy, they'll have to be.
Okay, can you hear me? Hello? I think we lost him. All right, let's switch over to Dustin in New Jersey. Hello, Dustin. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi, Mike. How you doing?
Doing all right.
I'm going to respond. This was from Friday. Okay, with Dave. I think it was Dave, maybe Thursday, but he called in from another state on Friday. I think. I don't know what his deal is, but I know he says, "Am I wearing my mask?" But Dave was actually right, though, in terms of it's two sides of the same coin. Trump ain't going to fix nothing, and neither is Biden. Just going to keep the status quo. You know that.
Yes.
By writing in Claire's name. But I'm going to jump to Joe, Miles, Tom. No. I mean, you know, I like Joe when he calls in. Some of the stuff he's right on. Some of the stuff he's wrong on. Just like them all. But, like, I'm thinking about Joe. You keep moving. He moves the goalpost, Mike. Trump called himself, remember, a law and order president.
Yes.
Not a disorder president. Nothing's been done about all these riots still, right? Like, people are getting hurt. Damage is being done. Well, you call yourself a law and order president and do something about it. Now, if you don't want to do anything about it because you want to blame Biden to win the election or blame the Democrats, which they deserve blame because they're crap. The Republicans are crap too. We know that. But, I mean, if you're a law and order president, you need to fix the problem. You don't sit back. But the problem with Joe is he moves the goalpost. They all do, Mike. Like, you know, he went from law and order president. Remember, he called in a couple times freaking out. Why isn't Trump doing, remember? You remember that. Why isn't Trump doing this? Why is Trump? And then he goes, Trump's a genius for not doing anything. Well, he's the president of the United States. He should be doing something, right? You just can't stand by and let all this damage go on for political reasons. That's what it is, right? That's for political reasons. Now, he should put his foot down and do what he's got to do to stop the violence. But Tom and Miles, the same. They just can't see past. They have like it's hard to say that it's a cult belief, like with people who believe in Hillary. With Miles and them all. The indictments aren't here. You heard Miles the other day, right? Like he made excuses for the indictments not coming. And we know, Mike, they're not coming. And by the way, Mike, Peter Strzok, he wasn't indicted, right? What happened to him? He wrote a book. He wrote a book. Didn't he do a GoFundMe page too? I mean, can you see the writing on the wall with that? You know, it's like the breadcrumbs are as big as the mountains. You know, I mean, it's just nothing's going to be done to do anything against with these people. So I'm saying, you know, why do people keep thinking Trump's going to do? I mean, Trump today had this thing with Benjamin Netanyahu and United Arab Emirates. And Mike, I would have rather see some kind of infrastructure bill on the lawn than this thing. This thing is a nothing burger to me.
Well, to you, but to Jewish Americans, it's a real big deal. And, you know, Trump pulled this off at this particular time, you know, to win the Jewish vote.
Mike, that's not a big deal right now. If you live in Israel, they're kind of having a lot of protests. I don't think it's a big deal to, like, most regular Jewish people, right? Like, it's just it's a big deal to a certain class of Israelis or Jewish Americans. But the mainstream American, like, if you're a typical Jewish American, you don't really give a crap, you know, because it doesn't affect your day-by-day life here, right? I mean, you go to the store, you got to work, you know, you do that. But, I mean, this was a big nothing burger. I would have rather seen something like about an infrastructure bill to fix things. But, I mean, I want you to think, do you really think anything's going to happen when he wins the next 4 years if he does? I mean, I just think it's going to be the status quo because Bill Barr's there and the rest of the gang, just to continue this nothingness, you know, of declining.
No, I don't think things are going to be much better. You know, Trump has shown what Trump is really all about. I just think Biden would be a lot worse. Yeah.
Well, you know, Mike, by the way, I was on YouTube like the other day. I watched classic car commercials from 1950s. Yeah. What a great, I mean, you look back like Chrysler and this, I'm like, those days, and this is to Miles because and Miles brought this up like last 2 weeks ago. Those days are never coming back, man. That days of America being that is way long gone. I mean, I just watched them like, oh yeah, when Mike Moore did the Flint, Michigan. I mean, Roger and me, you knew those days are not coming back.
Yes.
Ever.
Yep.
And then you also look at what's going on with the China GDP is doing pretty good. We're not doing so hot, man.
No, we're not. No, we're not.
Yeah. I mean, I know Al from Canada. I mean, he brings up the Federal Reserve also a lot. Like look at the amount of they're buying like the bad. They're still buying like all the bad bonds and debt, and they're just buying all the crap still. Like nothing. Nothing's been fixed. Like with Trump, I go back. There's no infrastructure built. Where's all the Trump talks about the rigged elections and stuff, but there's no fixing of anything. There's no fixing of like anything. Nothing. Like it's just, what it is? There's talk of maybe bringing it up, but there's no actual anything. I know Trump did that thing with the prices for drugs.
Yes.
But he didn't really do anything because that was just an executive order for them to look into doing something, right?
Well, no, what he did was he declared the United States to be a most favored nation, and that imposes certain restrictions on the prices that Big Pharma can charge American people. So I think it's actually going to have a little bit of an effect.
I hope so, Mike, because we need something. I mean, I'm thinking like you got a 20% unemployment rate, right, in this country? I mean, we're in bad shape. People need some kind of help. Shape. And you got the Republicans and the Democrats. That's both groups, Tom, not just the two sides of the same coin, the yin and the yang. You need two to tango, and they're not doing anything to fix any. You look, they don't care about the average just worker. They're just debating, and you know where they go after they debate, Mike? To that gentleman's club.
Yes.
Right? For dinner or whatever. And I don't know, do I still have time for my rant or I'm going to get off the phone?
Well, I think you need to get off the phone because we got a bunch of callers waiting on the line, and I still have news I want to get to.
All right. Mike, have a good night.
All right, thanks an awful lot. Glenn in Philadelphia is back, and Glenn, you were cut off while you were explaining to us about nuclear weapons and B-52s, and yes, it's true. The B-52 airframe is a venerable workhorse.
Yeah, it's been around 65 years. It's the world's heaviest production aircraft. They have especially reinforced the runways, and they take it off first, and then they have to put the fuel in the wings, because if they tried to fuel it, it wouldn't get off the ground. So the air has to hold up the wings before they fill the tanks. It's interesting. But they've been retrofitted every which way with, engines and avionics and all that sort of thing. However, so power is no issue. Power supply is no issue for deploying these bombs. The issue is that in order for them, for the bombs to be deployed and released, they have to be ridden by a crew member wearing a cowboy hat. and so it's a bit of a sacrificial issue there.
I'm sure they can find volunteers.
Yeah, more than one way. Yeah, I was glad the previous caller asked about it. It's kind of frustrating when you're waiting in the queue and the callers keep going, oh, and another thing, oh, and another thing, oh, and another thing, and they turn themselves into mini guests and pontificate. It's like, come on, make a point or two and then move on. But anyway. Oh yeah, and by the way, it's nanometer, not nanometer.
Okay.
While we're doing it, it's nanometer, not nanometer. A meter, like a speedometer is the ometer thing is usually for a device, a speedometer.
Well, I stand corrected.
Whatever. Yeah, it's very good. But at least you're correctable. Oh yeah, and about the funding, $10 a month on PayPal, you won't even notice it gone.
I'll notice.
If we could get a few thousand people doing $10 a month, you're not even gonna not even gonna notice it, and it will do a world of good. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you very much for the phone call. Thank you very much for the plug. And we do need the help right now. And $10 a month through PayPal would do a world of good. getting our equipment updated, getting it replaced, because that all does wear out. I mean, if you think about how long we're on the air every single day, every day of the week, every week of the year. All right, we're going to switch over to David in Boston. Hello, David. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, aloha, Michael. Hey, you know, it's funny that with the previous caller, what was his name? Glenn, the previous caller?
Yeah.
Whoa, boy, somebody's going up here, boy. Oh, yeah. Yeah, somebody put something on the stove like and it exploded. But yeah, anyways, Mike, yeah, it's funny he mentioned the thing about another thing and all that. There's a lady back here in Boston. She has a talk show on Saturday. Her name's Nancy Shack, and the name of her show is. And the name of her show is actually Another Thing, and Another Thing is the name of her show. You know, It's a talk show. You know, it's a talk show. Nancy Shack, her name is. Oh, hey, you know, if I can redeem myself with Miles from Maine, you know, it's so easy, as you probably well know, Michael, being a talk show host, it's so easy to be misunderstood. But yesterday, when I was talking about like voting for, if I voted at all, I'd vote for a third-party candidate and blah blah blah. But you know, Mike, when I came of voting age, the old man, and you know, there's only two kinds of men. You know, there's men that refer to their father as dad, and there's men that refer to their father as the old man. So I refer to my father as the old man. But the old man said to me, you know. I was indifferent to voting when I was a young man. He said, you know, he says, Dave, get out and vote, he says, because if you ever need any help from a politician, if you ever get into a bind or you need some sort of, and he was on the fire department, and, you know, firefighters usually politically connected to a certain extent and everything. He says, if you ever need a favor from one of these politicians, you need a politician to go to bat for you, the first thing they do is check the voter rolls to see if you're an active voter. So just get down and vote, no matter who you vote for. Be an active voter. But anyways,
hey, David, I got to put you on hold. David, I got to put you on hold. We got to take a break for commercials. Don't hang up. I'm going to come right back to you after these words from our sponsors. Welcome back to our show here. And just for a moment, I want you to consider how many millions and millions of dollars the paid liars are spending to convince you there are no arsonists on the West Coast, that it's all global warming, various other deceptions that you're being fed on a daily basis. And all we're asking for here is for each of our listeners to send in just a few dollars, you know, to keep Republic Broadcasting here on the air, speaking truth to power. So once again, the postal address to send a check, money order, or if you prefer anonymity cash, is Republic Broadcasting Network, 2251 Double Creek Drive, number 302, Round Rock, Texas, 78664. The phone number where you can make a credit or debit card donation is 800-724-2719, extension 3. The network thanks you. Okay, we're talking with David in Boston. And David, if you could just sort of pick up where you left off.
Oh, yeah, Mike. Yeah, so anyways, Mike, I'm kind of responding to Miles, but what the deal was, I used to try, you know, sometimes vote for nobody, and I wouldn't mark anything on the ballot and everything. But the machine won't take an unmarked ballot; it rejects it and everything. So then I started writing a little bit on the side or something, and it still wouldn't take it. So you have to fill in one of the ovals, at least one, for the machine to take it. You know, So I wasn't really advocating necessarily everybody voting for a third party, but with me, I've never been into the Republicans and the Republicrats and everything. So I can remember, you know, voting Howard Phillips and Harry Brown and Cynthia. I've heard of Cynthia McPhinney and I've Chuck Baldwin, and you know, so I just, you know, so if I can redeem myself a little bit with Miles, I wasn't actually advocating anything. I was just saying it's just what I do, you know. But, and then one other thing, Mike, I was kind of ragging on Tricky Trump yesterday. But another thing that is a bone in my quarrel or whatever with Trump is, he led us to believe that when the expiration date came up. What was it, last spring or something? I mean, the spring, maybe the year before last or something. When the expiration date came up on the JFK,
Yes.
Classified archives and everything, all that classified information, he led us to believe when it expired, he was just going to let it expire and force the government to reveal who, and in my opinion, who really killed President Kennedy and everything. They know who really killed him.
Of course.
And yeah, and then he betrayed us. He stabbed us in the back again. I know they released a few crumbs or something, whatever you might call it. Some insignificant
Limited hangout is the term of craft.
Huh?
Limited hangout is what they call it.
Yeah. So this, and so he signed it to continue to keep the real important stuff secret. For example, like who really killed President Kennedy and everything. But anyways, Mike. Another term I've come up with that I like personally. Sometimes I come up with stuff, and I kind of enjoy the stuff I come up with, Mike. My own material. But I'm going to start I referred to his cowardly attack on Qasem Soleimani and everything, and then the Jewish cop there shooting. Jacob Blake in the back 7 times and everything. But I'm going to start referring to I say Trump, he Palestined. He Palestined Qasem Soleimani, that Jewish cop in Kenosha. He Palestined Jacob Blake. And the more I think about it, they're Palestining Yemen, they're Palestining Iraq, they're Palestining Syria, they're Palestining Afghanistan.
They're Palestining America.
Exactly, Mike. That's what I'm going to keep referring to it now. We're being. That's what I was leading up to. We're being Palestined, and you see, even Antifa and Black Lives Matter, they're like millennia Palestinians just throwing rocks and stuff on these heavily armored riot police, heavy body armor and heavy weaponry and everything. They're like a bunch of Palestinians now, throwing rocks at them and stuff and everything. Even a Molotov cocktail or something. But we're being Palestine. So that's what I'm going to keep referring to. All these armed white men and another, and I'll just finish up with this, Mike. That I despise Trump because I'm sick of what he's doing for we're boasting about what he's doing for blacks and Latinos and women and the LGBT community. Hey, Trump, what about what's become the permanent white underclass? Poor white people, like where Miles is from. There's so much poverty up in Maine and all down through Appalachia. There's a permanent white underclass in this country now, Mike. But Trump isn't going to address that. He won't even say the word white. He wouldn't even say the word white. They're afraid that white is political suicide. But now,
yeah, they are. Anyway, David, listen, we're at another commercial break here, and I'm going to have to let you go because we got other callers and I've got other news. We'll be right back after these few words. Welcome back to our show here. We're going to go back to the phones to Joe in Nome, Alaska. Hello, Joe. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind today?
I've heard you use this phrase before. History doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes.
Yes.
I never really got the point of that joke. I assume it's a joke. But actually sitting here waiting for you to recognize me here today, I think I figured it out. What the joke is. But it isn't really a joke. Did I
No, it isn't.
Ever recite Afghanistan, Graveyard of Empires,
yes.
Business. Did I ever recite that Rudyard Kipling poem about Afghanistan to you?
The Soldier's Lament, I think, on Afghanistan's plains, and the women come out to cut up what remains. Roll on your
Roll to
rifle
your
and blow out
rifle,
your brains and go to
blow
your
out
god.
brains, go to your God like a soldier.
Okay. Do you like Kipling? Ask me if I like Kipling.
Yeah.
No,
sure.
you asked me
I
if I like
recited that.
Kipling.
Oh. Good. So, I recited that poem to the Nome City Council, and Graveyard of Empires, simply because that's where Alexander the Great, pedophile, met his Waterloo. The mayor's gay, but whatever. I got issues there. But on 9/11, as far as rhyming or the significance of, I believe that was Rome suffered its greatest defeat on 9/11. It happens to be the Ethiopian and the Coptic calendar's New Year is on September 11th. And there's a couple of other notables there also. I'm an artist, a blue collar artist, but and I do a little rapping. I think it was that rapper Ludacris's birthday was September 11th. But no, here, let me get a little more serious here. We got the overthrow of democratically elected government of Salvador Allende was on September 11th. The William Wallace and Andrew Moray defeat the English in Scotland there on September 11th. The Ottoman forces in 1565 forces retreat from the Malta Great Siege of Malta. So yeah, I'm an iconoclast, and I did a little research on that. And there was in the waning days of Greece, there was a government called the Iconoclasts, and they abolished churches. Now, I'm all about that. So as far as me, Isaac Newton was a scientist, right?
So I've heard.
So I've heard too. He's also devoutly religious. But the point being, and I've been saying this for quite a while, that science, as it's practiced today, whatever, science is just another religion these days.
Unfortunately, you are correct, especially when it comes to like the climate gate.
Right.
Scientists have been adopted as the new priesthood by the power elite. They traded in their priestly robes for a white lab coat and their holy scriptures for a clipboard. But otherwise, their job is the same, is to convince the common people that what the rulers are doing is the right thing.
Yeah. Anyway, so I've been saying that for a long time. But I also add the caveat that religion is just another science remembered dimly. And anyway, let me get on with a few of these other quotes. That was my bit on the iconoclast. On 9/11, Greece and Turkey mixing it up again over offshore gas destroyed the Hagia Sophia last week.
No, they didn't destroy the Hagia Sophia. It was merely reverting back to being a mosque.
Oh, okay. Well,
all right. Listen,
all right.
Joe, we're really running short on time, and I got a bunch of callers, and I got a story I really want to get to. So thanks an awful lot for the phone call. And before we go back to the phones here, this story started yesterday, and I really wanted to get to it today. Astronomers find possible sign of life on Venus, and apparently traces of a molecule known as phosphine have been found in the acidic atmosphere of Venus, providing a tantalizing clue about the possibility of life. Now, phosphine molecules found on Earth are primarily a result of human industry or the actions of microbes that thrive in oxygen-free environments. And so everybody's all excited. Life on Venus, life on Venus. I wish they were as excited about life on Mars, but of course, we're aiming for that next February anyway. So they're already talking about a new mission to go on out there and sample the atmosphere and confirm the presence of phosphine, because it would be a strong indicator that some form of extraterrestrial life, totally alien to Earth, is alive in the upper levels of the atmosphere of Venus. All right, we're going to go back to the phones here to Kelly in Austin. Hello, Kelly. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi there. Just addressing what your last caller made. Science is not a religion, but scientism is.
Yes.
That's become something that true believers have embraced. I am a scientist. I have a PhD in geochemistry. I know damn well what science is. And I take offense at the suggestion that science is a religion. Scientism is. And if you want to see a practitioner of that, look at Al Gore.
That's a good clarification. That's a very good clarification.
Right. Now, about Dustin, he constantly whines about Trump not doing anything. He says, like, what's changed? Like, what's changed? Listen, Trump is he's not a dictator. He's the president of the United States, and his role in the government is strictly defined and limited by the Constitution. He cannot decree that things be done. What he wants to do takes the cooperation of the legislative branch, which is fractured, and it's not there, it seems, to represent the interests of their constituents. If you could get both houses of Congress to cooperate with Trump, a lot of what Dustin wants to see done and what I want to see done would get done, but you're not seeing it. And it also requires that at least one house of Congress stop running to the damn court system to try to thwart everything he's trying to do every time he does something. So to me, the idea that you could blame this on Trump, like Trump hasn't done anything. Well, yes, he's tried, but he has to work within a system. He can't work outside the system, and it requires other parts of that system to cooperate, and they're just not cooperating.
No, they aren't.
That's all I got to say about it. I mean, I'm getting tired of that incessant whining about Trump not doing anything. He has tried, and every time he's tried to do something, Nancy Pelosi or somebody else, some other idiot, has tried to thwart him in Congress. And how many times have Democrats gone to the courts to try to stop things he's tried to do?
Quite a lot. Well, that's why Trump is out there saying he's owed a third term, although I think his timing sucks. He should have waited until he won his second term to start talking about that.
Yeah, okay. Well, that's all I really got to say about it. But just to close out, the science versus scientism thing is, I think, it's something you have to distinguish between. A scientist is really going to object to that, whereas somebody who fancies himself knowledgeable about science, but who really isn't much of a scientist, is going to embrace the scientism nonsense, and is going to misrepresent the whole field of science. So just make that distinction, please.
Yeah, I will in the future. And that's a good clarification. Thank you for the phone call, Kelly. And before we go back to the phone lines here, I just got an email. Your caller, David, was absolutely wrong when he made the analogy equating Black Lives Matter protesters with Palestinians. Black people are not being occupied, are not going through checkpoints, and their homes are not being demolished. Black Lives Matter is a terrorist organization funded by George Soros. Palestinians are fighting for their freedom, unlike Black Lives Matter that wants to destroy the society, including other black people. Very cogent observation. Okay, we're going to go back to the phones to Al in Canada. Hello, Al. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi, Mike.
Hi.
I thought that Black Lives Matter was funded through Arch Blue.
They're getting funding from a lot of people, including a lot of corporations.
Okay, yeah, because I was going to mention something about, that 50% of these people are unemployed and it's non-traceable and all that nonsense. I mean, it stinks to high heaven.
Yes, it does.
But, it's as dirty can be. Up here in Canada, our federal health minister is a graphics art designer.
Yes. Good qualification.
Yeah. And that's under Trudeau, this guy that thinks, everybody gets a trophy and all that kind of crap. She has absolutely no background in science, and she's not a PhD or an MA or anything. It's just like, 'cause she's a Bachelor of Arts. So when I was a kid, I remember in grade 6 shop, we had, working with wood, right?
Yes.
The teacher said a BA is bugger all.
Mm-hmm.
Back then, teachers usually had, like a master's in something with, something else, right? Now they just have social science. Yeah. Now they have social, like, this the poli-sci or, a Bachelor of Arts in this whatever kind of crapola, and they're teaching kids in grade 8 mathematics and making, like $90,000 a year for doing it. And they can't even add, like, they need to count on their fingers to do any kind of arithmetic whatsoever. It's absolutely disgraceful. But anyway, this COVID-19 thing, Mike, I want to read you something. I sent you this maybe a month or so ago, and I'm pretty sure I got this off of your website. So, and here, what this is, I'm going to read this verbatim. The United Nations, including WHO, conducts at least 2 system-wide training and simulation exercises, including one for covering the deliberate release of a lethal respiratory pathogen.
Yes.
And the progress indicator for this whatever they're doing is by September 2020. And on the CBC right now, the government is saying the second wave's coming.
Yes.
Right? Do you remember reading this like a month or so ago? I sent this.
Yeah, I remember it.
This was published in September 2019. So, the CDC has admitted these masks, they don't work. Stanford University has called out, that little arithmetic, that little computer glitch. They inputted the wrong data. It was supposed to be 0.1, and they put in 1 or whatever it was, so that this was 10 times as worse as it is.
Is that actually turned out to be?
It actually is.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's been nothing about that, or the CDC with the 6% of all the deaths were actually from COVID. No comorbidities, but from COVID. And then you get into comorbidities, and it's like 2.7 comorbidities for all the rest of the deaths. On average, that's a huge number, Mike. Like 2.7 is almost, these people had like 3 other things wrong with them. But anyway, there's been no mention of any of that here up in Canada whatsoever. Not a tinkle. But it's in your country.
Well, it's starting to get out there. I mean, the corporate media is still downplaying all of this and, pushing the fear mongering for COVID-19, wants to turn us all into germaphobes.
Oh yeah. And in actual fact, using all this hand sanitizer, which nobody really uses up here anyway. I use it on the way out if I can, because now I picked up all these other people's cooties, right?
Yes.
So, but I'll use it going in. But normally I wouldn't, right? Because we need this. We need to have a strong and healthy immune system. And one of the ways of ensuring that is by using it.
Yes.
Right? If you sit around and you're a sloth all day, well, you're not going to be very fit and healthy. I mean, this is just one of the things that has kept us alive for this long on this planet. People forget that. They think this, shot in the arm with this vaccination, that's not going to help anybody. It won't. And how do they know they got the right strain, Mike? Because they've already admitted that this stuff is already mutated.
Yes.
Ooh. 2.0. It's another way for the big pharma to make money, because they run out of ways to make big money. There's only so many drugs they can develop. Well, look, and on top of that, the ones that they are developing, they end up being outlawed because they're highly addictive, like these painkillers, right?
Yes.
Well, they get shuffled in from somewhere, through the back door, whatever, the CIA, I don't know. Anyway, So I saw a YouTube video of Gaddafi in 2009 in front of the UN, and he literally said that these companies that make these vaccinations will also create the virus. He
Yes.
literally said that.
Yes, he did.
2009, Mike. Was he wrong?
Nope. I mean, we've got that Chinese scientist who's gone public saying that she has proof that COVID-19 was created in a lab.
And I bet you some of it came from right here in Canada, because there was a story about that a few months back. And it was actually on the CBC. It was one of those little things, you know what I mean? Just a little whiff and it's gone, right?
Yes.
You got to actually know what the hell it was and search for it in order to find it, like on their website. You know, kind of like the back pages of a newspaper.
Yes.
You know,
we had the same
appreciate
thing
your
down
time,
here
Mike.
in the U.S. where there was some, apparently the Wuhan Institute had a handshake relation with institutes here in the United States of America, which were sending them genetic material.
Hmm? I think your Dr. Fauci was directly involved in that sort of thing.
Yes.
Because he's been there for 40 years, right?
Something like that.
Yeah. These people that have been working in the government for 40 years, they know a lot of other people. It's like a big web.
The big
like
club,
union.
and you ain't
You
in
know
it.
what I mean?
Yep.
Hi, Mike. I'll try not to be too long here because you said you're kind of pressed for time. So I made up a little joke today. Can I tell it to you?
Absolutely.
Okay. We, you saw where Trump gave the key to the White House to Netanyahu, right?
Yes.
Well, they're off mic. They heard Netanyahu say, "What's this for? Did you change the locks?"
That's a good one.
Joke.
That's a good one.
No, the thing I want to do, that's the first thing I thought of when I saw it. The thing I wanted to mention was whether this coronavirus, I mean, there's a lot of information out there that's saying this virus has never been isolated, and they're just, they're testing for just residual things that we have naturally in our bodies, and we all carry these corona things. But, whether there's a vaccine, I don't believe in it. I wouldn't take one. But I guess I wanted to get your feeling on, I think all along I don't know if you saw that interview with Bill and Melinda Gates where they were just, looked like they were having like they don't, if they never had money and they just won the lottery, they were just giggling about this whole, it made me sick. I mean, if they really think people are dying and suffering from this, why are they giggling and having such a good time? And, it's revolting. But I think what's really going on, and I don't know, obviously, I don't know anything, but listen to your show for information with your great callers. But I think that they're gonna relax this thing, and everybody's gonna say, "See, it was a scam." And then I think how much later, I don't know, whether it's after the election, they're going to release the Kraken, and it's going to be a bioengineered disease that's going to make Ebola look like a Sunday school picnic. And I don't know. I just seems like it's a setup, like they know something. Because how bad that would be if everybody just started like Bill Gates, you're a phony, and it's already all over the internet. This guy, I don't know what he must have. I know he's got bodyguards. He must have body doubles, and his kids must be protected because he's got to be one of the most hated people, at least on the internet. And
yes.
For people I talk to, they hate this guy in Fauci, but he doesn't seem to be. He's trying to cover his image a little bit, but anyways, but the thing I wanted to ask you was, do you think that might be the case where everybody relaxes and they say, "See, you guys were wrong, and we're going to, you should be arrested for what you did. This is a lie," and then they release the big one, the deadly one. And I hope that don't happen, but that's kind of what I think. What are your thoughts?
Well, it's certainly possible. We know that there's a certain group of people who think there are way too many human beings on planet Earth. And I know there's a population problem, and there always will be, because sex is much more fun than dying. As to whether they're going to go like Tom Clancy described in Rainbow Six, that's a work of fiction. It's certainly technically possible for them to do something like that.
Oh, that's scary, isn't it? Well,
yep.
I was hoping you'd tell me I was crazy, but I appreciate it, Michael.
Okay,
let you get going. I know you're pressed for time. Thank you.
All right. All right. Well, thank you very much here. And one more time, I want to mention, just imagine for a second that you power up your computer or your radio or your phone or whatever, and you tune in, and one day Republic Broadcasting Network, it just isn't there. And it's a real possibility right now. We're running on the fumes, and we really do need people to step up and support the network. And thanks to all the callers who came on in and urged their fellow listeners to step up and donate. Just a little bit from everybody would put us over the top. And once again, the postal address to send a check, money order, or if you prefer anonymity cash, is Republic Broadcasting Network, 2251 Double Creek Drive, number 302, Round Rock, Texas, 78664. The phone number for a credit card or debit card donation is 800-724-2719, extension 3. And we should be hearing the closeout music right about now. So stay tuned for John Stedmiller. I think Steve Elkin may be on the air again tonight as well. A little bird said something along that line. Steve is filling in for John Stedmiller tonight. Yes, I just got the word from our control room. And please spread the word of Republic Broadcasting. Spread the word of whatreallyhappened.com. Please donate. Otherwise, we're going to have to sell our...